We saw the fire in front of us, and because of the wind and the smoke blowing, we weren't able to actually assess that the fire had been moving around behind where we were at the other house. And then we just looked up a few minutes later, and the fire had moved to within a few hundred yards of the house, and my son and I knew it was time that we had to get out.
He ran back inside, said, "We have to go," and I looked out the window, and the fire was right there. The house was catching on fire.
And we traveled about a little over a quarter of a mile, and there was a tree across the road, and immediately had to stop. And we turned around, and this time my son was in front in his truck, and I was behind, and we drove back into the fire.
And driving down the road, I looked at my house, and I saw these 8-foot flames coming out of my front window. I had a big, probably 6 by 10 window in the front of the house, and all I saw was this huge flame coming out of it, and everything I had was burning.
And we kept driving through this, and we were fortunate that we had no problems, and after a few miles we had gotten to an area that had burnt a little bit earlier in the day, where it was still smoldering and burning, but we were able to continue on out of the area, you know, and which we returned to it several hours later, just to see everything was already burnt to the ground.
So this is what's left of my house. This house was built back in the later 40s by my great-grandpa. It's been a cattle ranch for, you know, over 100 years. It's been our family for over 100 years, and now this is kind of what's left. We have very few structures left. A lot of our hay actually all of our hay for our cattle burned up. All of our barns burned down except for 2 over at the other ranch. I had an old antique sewing machine there. There's parts of my piano. There's a lot of different things I had in my house that I can't buy again. They were family heirlooms. I had this chest that came from Asia somewhere overseas that my grandma had, and now, you know, that's gone. So that's the stuff I miss.
After the fire went through, we found these 2 branding irons. The one here on my left is ML, and that was Massimino Lafranchi, and he was my grandfather that bought this ranch originally in 1912. And then I have this other brand which has LB, and that was Lafranchi Brothers, which was my dad and his 2 brothers as they continued on in the business. Now in modern times we don't brand cattle, probably not the most kind thing to do, but they're cool artifacts to keep, you know, just as historical type things. The house that I lost, you know, there's a real sentimental attachment to it because my parents lived there, and then I grew up in that house, and as, you know, time went on and things happened, I was able to move back into that house, and my children were able to grow up there all to adulthood, and, you know, there may have been a chance in the future that another generation could have grown up in that same house. So that's very sad that, you know, that house is gone.
But it doesn't look like it's in too bad shape. No. The animals actually did really well. There was only a few casualties. When we left, I just saw the animals running in their pasture, and I just felt so bad that I couldn't help them. But in the end, we came back, and the cattle that were actually running around in their pasture that I thought were just all gonna die of smoke inhalation, they survived. So I couldn't believe it. And that's what we're kind of grateful for now, is that everybody survived and most of the cattle survived. So the wind's supposed to pick up tonight, and the fire could come back. I went and looked around, there's still a lot of vegetation up there. There's a lot of fuel for the fire.